Good day. My name is Ludet Christy Ciarna. My topic is about action theories. Action theories are goal-directed theories that assume the existence of a conscious choice that is instrumental in guiding the behavior, particularly in the light of predicted outcomes. Action theory is not a coherent theory but a perspective. Although it has a long history, it has only regained importance in psychology since the 1960s. Its basic features are the intentionality and self-reflectivity of humans. It is therefore unique to humans. It also has integrative theoretical power. It allows one to resolve the classical splits in psychology: nature, cultures, body, mind, and cognition effects. In describing the most important central feature of the human action, it is useful to distinguish between actions as analytical and empirical units. Origin of action theory. The social action theory was founded by Max Weber. There are two main types of sociological theories. The first is the structural or macro theory, while the other is the social action interpretive or micro-perspective. Max Weber believed that it was social action that should be the focus of study in sociology. To Weber's, a social action was an action carried out by an individual to which an individual attached a meaning. Therefore, an action that a person does not think about cannot be a social action. Types of action theory. First, rational purposeful action. This action may be rationally expedient if it is based on logical or scientific grounds. Rational action, also known as value rational actions, virtue rational action which are taken because it leads to a valued goal, but with no thoughts of its consequences and often without considerations of the appropriateness of the means chosen to achieve it. The end justifies the means.
Example of rational purposeful action. When you take a step towards achieving a specific aim, those steps are example of purposeful action. When an action has a point to it and it is useful, having purpose, intentional, having a purpose in mind, resolute and determined.
Value rational action states that this form of human action is based and goal-oriented in the value of the activity in questions. Both the goal and the means to reach the goals are determined by values. Weber states that in all rational human action, value is an underlying element because rational action always implies a choice of value made by the agent. Campbell, 1981.
It means are chosen for their efficiency, but ends are determined by value. For example, a soldier laying down his life for the country.
Effective action. An effective action would be an action that was caused by emotion. Affective things are like that they are either caused by emotions or feelings, influenced by them, or are otherwise related to emotion. You can also use affective to say that something expresses emotions. Affective action can define as individual action motivated by emotions. Affected is an adjective form from the noun affect, which appears quite frequently in psychology-related writing.
Example, a man who likes to live at a certain place because it feels good to stay there. Although in another place, the opportunities for earning money, job opportunities are much better.
Traditional action is a social action taken because it was done in the past. They are actions which are carried out due to their tradition because they are always carried out in such a situation. An example would be putting on clothes or relaxing on Sundays. Traditional action takes place when the means and ends of action are fixed by traditions and custom. For instance, many so-called primitive communities or societies have very firm rights or traditions of succession for community or group leaders.
Example is like A tradition of our families, our tradition during fiestas, Christmas, New Year, birthday, or others.
Next, institutional theory. Institutional theory is a research tradition that traces its origin back to foundational articles that discuss how organizational founding and change were driven less by functional consideration and more by symbolic actions and external influences that the theory at the time assumed. Mayer and Rowan, 1977. A growing subfield of institutional theory concerns institutional logics, which are broadly but not universally shared assumptions and action patterns. Thornton, 1995. At the organization level, institutional logics can be seen as sources of managerial decision-making rules, and hence institutional logic research is related to research on the BTOF and evolutionary theory. Advantages and disadvantages of institutional theory. Institutional theory provides the basis for the systematic analysis of innovation, using theoretical contributions about distinctions between formal and informal institutions, and regulative, normative, and cultural cognitive types of institutions, as well as the different levels of the institution. Gills, 2010. Disadvantages of institutional theories. The weakness of institutional theories lies in the analysis of internal dynamics for organizational change and ignores the roles of the power and self-interest. Sotheby, 2015, Wilmot, 2015. The characteristics. In sociology and organizational studies, institutional theory is a theory on the deeper and more resilient aspects of social structures. It considers the processes by which structures, including schemes, rules, norms, and routines, become established as authoritative guidelines for social behavior. Institutions are social structures that have attained a high degree of resilience. They are composed of cultural, cognitive, normative, and regulative elements that, together with associated activities and resources, provide stability and meaning to social life. Institutions are transmitted by various types of carriers, including symbolic systems, relational systems, and routines and facts. The sixth concept of institutional theory. Institutional theory is an approach to understanding organizations and management practices as the product of social rather than economic pressures. It has become a popular perspective within management theory because of its ability to explain organizational behaviors that defy economic rationality. In sociology and organizational studies, institutional theory is a theory on the deeper and the more resilient aspects of the social structures. First, diffusion. Diffusion concerns with the spread of an innovation through a population. Researchers in diffusion theory have developed analytical models for explaining and forecasting the dynamics of diffusion of an innovation, an idea, practice, or object perceived as new by an individual in a socio-technical system.
It is refers to the process by which institutional characteristics spread to international institutions from a point of innovation to points of potential adoption.
Next, rational minds. It is conceptual resources derived from various organizational and broader institutional sources, which influence the parties employing them in interactions across an organizational field. Sewell, 1992, cited in Edelman, Eugene, and Erlanger, 1999 to 441. Next, loose coupling. According to Wick, 1976, loose coupling is a cognitive response to an environment of constant change, in which connection networks, diffusion, imitation, and social comparison are less prevalent. It is an approach to interconnecting the components in a system or network so that those components, also called elements, depend on each other to the least extent predictable. Coupling refers to the degree of direct knowledge that one element has of another. Next, legitimacy. It is a fundamental concept of organizational institutionalism. It influences how organizations behave and has been shown to affect their performance and survival. Popular acceptance of a government, political regime, or a system of governance. The word legitimacy can be interpreted in either a normative way or a positive, see positivism way. Next, isomorphism is a concept at the core of institutional theory to explain the homogeneity of organizations in a field. DiMaggio and Powell, 1983, developed a framework that presented the different mechanisms, including coercive, mimetic, and normative, through which isomorphism occurs is a structure-preserving mapping between two structures of the same type that can be reserved by an inverse mapping. And the last, infusion of value psi potential. Value-based organizations recognize the needs for having core corporate and service values that determine the policies, decisions, and action of the organization. Value-based organizations recognize the need for having a corporate and service values that determine the policies, decisions, and actions of the organization. Core values, however, need to be internalized by the people if they are to have a real impact on the culture of an organization. Thank you.